C5, an act to amend the Bills of Exchange Act and Interpretation Act and the Canada Labour Code, also known as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I want to thank our guests for being here today. We'd like to thank Mr. Romeo Saganash for being here, Stephanie Scott, who is the Acting Director for the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. We also have Stephen Kakfui, who is a Governing Circle member. And our third guest will be from Orange Shirt Society. We have Phyllis Webstad, who's the Executive Director, founder of Orange Shirt Day. Now, the way this normally works is we give you 5 minutes to do an opening statement from each group. So that will be 3 opening statements. And following that, we have questions and comments from our members of parliament for the duration of this hour. Since we started a few minutes late, we will extend the meeting by a few minutes just to cover that. First, and Mr. Saganash, good to see you again, sir. You have 5 minutes, and we look forward to it, sir. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Scott, and pleasure to see you again. I'll just put on my timer because I don't want to go over my 5 minutes as usual. First of all, miigwech to the committee for this kind invitation to appear before your committee. I wish also to acknowledge the government for putting forth and introducing Bill C5. I think it's an important piece of legislation moving forward in this country. I would like to express my deep gratitude as well to my former colleague, Georgina Jolibois, who did some formidable work on this piece of legislation regarding reconciliation in this country. I know this legislation only addresses one day of truth and reconciliation, one national day of truth and reconciliation, implementing, I believe, call to action 80 among one of the important calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Let's not forget that there are 93 others calls to action that need to be implemented in this country if we wish to move forward on the path of reconciliation. I think it's important to remember that. I understand that the government is also on the verge of introducing legislation regarding the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which is great. It's been promised since 2015. Long time coming, but better late than never, I guess. And I'm looking forward to seeing that piece of legislation in particular, since I had similar legislation not too long ago, Bill C-262, which finally died in the order paper in the Senate after being passed by Parliament. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Of course, UNDRIP legislation addresses calls to action 43 and 44. 44 is in regard to the action plan that's required to implement the UN Declaration, and 43 calls on the federal government, the provinces, the territories, and the municipalities to fully adopt and implement the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So I'm glad we're moving forward in that regard. Let's not forget that there's at least 16 references to the United Nations Declaration in the calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I believe that not only legislation in this country needs to be consistent with the UN Declaration, but our policies and our operational practices as well need to be consistent with the UN Declaration. I see that my time is running fast, but I just wanted to make a couple of points here. One of them being that reconciliation is something that has been addressed by the Supreme Court of Canada back in 2004 in the Haida Nation case, whereby the Supreme Court said that reconciliation is not an end in itself, but a process that we need to follow in this country. And adding that the objective here, reconciliation, is to reconcile the pre-existing sovereignty of Indigenous peoples with the assumed sovereignty of the Crown. I think it's important to remember that Supreme Court case. So if we are truly all in this together, I think we need to address all of the 94 calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as well as the calls to justice of the inquiry into missing murdered Indigenous women and girls. I think that's an important point here. Indigenous people's rights are human rights. Let's not forget that. There's an interesting principle in the 2014 Supreme Court decision in Chilcotin, whereby the Supreme Court acknowledges that the charter provisions in Part 1 of our Constitution and Section 35 in Part 2 of our Constitution are sister provisions, is the expression used, sister provisions that serve to limit the powers of the federal government and the provinces. It's important to remember that. In closing, I think those who have no intention of upholding the fundamental rights of Indigenous peoples always talk about us to have patience, or these things are too complicated. It's going to take time, but they aren't. Just to give you an example, the first modern treaty in this country, which has about 500 pages, took 1 year to negotiate. And it's the most complex and complicated document, this first modern treaty, James Bay North and Quebec Agreement, and it took 1 year to negotiate. So I'll just leave it at that, because I see that my time, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Romeo. Appreciate that. Now we're going to the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. I have two. Ms. Scott, do you want to split your time, or do you want to start first? Or
I'm going to split my time with Stephen, please.
Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
So good morning. My name is Stephanie Scott, and I'm the Acting Director of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. I am joined today by Stephen Kakwe, who is a member of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation Governing Circle. First, I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I want to thank the House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage for the invitation to appear in view of your study of Bill C-5. At the outset, I would also like to note that we owe a debt of gratitude to Georgina Jolibois, who first introduced Bill C-369 in October 2017 to create a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Although Bill C-369 died in the Senate, it provided an important opportunity for dialogue and reflection, as Georgina said. After 151 years of pain and suffering inflicted on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, there will now be a time to reflect and to build relationships to strengthen the Canadian society. I could not agree more. I spent five years at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and almost 5 years at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. As a manager of statement gathering at the Commission, I had a unique opportunity to hear directly from survivors about their pain and suffering. My birth mother, who is in her 60s, says that she will never be the same because of the assimilation policies that took her away from the people she loved and the ones who loved her. May she find peace while she's still alive. To me, that's what reconciliation is all about. My colleague Rai Moran appeared in front of this committee in 2018. At the time, Rai spoke about the TRC's examination of the place of residential schools in the history of this country. And he stated that the TRC was forced to conclude that there are no words for it other than cultural genocide. In 2019, the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls also concluded that there's been a race-based genocide of Indigenous peoples, which has been empowered by colonial structures, evidenced notably by the Indian Act, the 60 Scoop, residential schools, and breaches of Indigenous human rights. I too am a 60 Scoop survivor. The international human rights legal framework requires Canada to provide redress for past harms caused to Indigenous peoples, such as those described by the Commission and the National Inquiry. Redress can be individual or collective and may have material as well as symbolic components. Symbolic components such as commemoration are powerful medicine to bring comfort to survivors and to keep the truth of their experiences in front of the nation. This is why the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action 80 for a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation is so important. Survivors and their families and others affected by the residential school system need a day for Canadians to acknowledge them and the history of human rights violations they have endured while they are still living. The time to act is now. In addition, we believe that the government must also implement the TRC's call to action 81 and 82, which call for the federal, provincial, and territorial governments in collaboration with survivors to establish monuments in capital cities across the country to honor survivors and all the children who were lost to their families and communities. Canadians need to know the truth and understand what happened in order to foster true reconciliation and healing. Commemoration and education are critical to understand the complicated and difficult history that we share as Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians. We have seen time and time again what a difference education can make to the journey we are all now on together to reconcile our past and create a bright future for all the generations to follow. I would now like to turn the floor over to Mr. Kakfwi.
Yeah, thank you. I should say good morning still. I join you today from the original land of the Dene. I'm a member of the governing circle of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, and I've been fortunate to have had many leadership roles, including serving as a premier for the Northwest Territories and as president of the Dene Nation. I also am a survivor of residential schools. And most importantly, I'm a husband, a father, and a grandfather. In my lifetime, I focus on what can be accomplished when people work together, when we all engage in dialogue and form relationships based on understanding each other's life stories and commonalities as human beings. I would venture to say that a similar motivation is behind the call to action 80. We are in this together, Indigenous people and all Canadians, who work together cooperatively to build a better Canada. Reconciliation is not an Aboriginal problem, it is a Canadian one. I would like to convey that we are very pleased with the suggested date of September 30th as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. As a survivor, September has always been a difficult month, for it is when September comes that you suffer periods of feeling empty and lonely. It is because it is tied to the season when you are taken away by force from your family and your community and brought to the residential schools. September 30th is currently an Orange Shirt Day. As all of you know, it is started by Phyllis Webstad, who had been given an orange shirt by her grandmother on her first day of residential school, but it was taken away from her upon her arrival. I see this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as building on the truth, reconciliation, and healing as initiated by Orange Shirt Day. This National Day should not be seen as a holiday. Rather, it should be seen as a day of honoring and remembering, like Remembrance Day. It should be a day to remember those students who went to residential school, those who survived, and those who did not. Just as we like to remember people who served in the wars on Remembrance Day. It's important to have a day to remember and honor survivors, to end the month in a way that recasts the negative energy experienced at the beginning of the month and turn it into an event that is healing, an event that honors the history of survivors as well as their accomplishments and contributions which they have achieved despite adversities faced. Ms. Scott mentioned the TRC's call to action 81 and 82, which called for the establishment of monuments in Ottawa and other capital cities across the country. This is critically important as it would provide the Prime Minister, Indigenous leaders, survivors, and elders, and others from across the country with a place to gather, to hold ceremonial remembrance services. And so we are calling upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to begin and continue trying to create these significant monuments. In closing, I'd like to emphasize that commemoration as called for by the TRC's calls to action 80, 81, and 82, as well as the numerous calls to action regarding education, can help us forge a new partnership for the future. Establishing a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is a very important initiative, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to convey the voices of survivors to support the important work of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kakwe. And in your speech, in your introduction, you mentioned Phyllis Webstad. Well, we're fortunate enough to have her with us today. Ms. Webstad, for a 5-minute opening, please. And of course, Ms. Webstad is from the Orange Shirt Society. Thank you for joining us.
Wait. Good morning and hello to everyone here today. My name is Phyllis Webstad. I'm from the Strachem, Kennequark, Gatstum, Dog Creek First Nation. I am coming to you today from Secwepemc-Ulach, the land of the Shuswap people in Williams Lake, BC. Kennequark Dog Creek is approximately an hour and a half southwest of Williams Lake. I thank you for the invitation to speak on Bill C-5, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I'm really nervous. I am third-generation Indian residential school survivor that attended the St. Joseph Indian Residential School, also known as the Mission near Williams Lake. My grandmother attended for 10 years, along with her 10 children, including my mother for 10 years, and I attended for 1 year. My son was at the last operating residential school in Saskatchewan when it closed in 1996. I lived with my grandmother on the Dog Creek Reserve until I was 10. Then I went to live with my aunt when she finished university. When I turned 6 in July of 1973, Granny took me to town to buy something to wear for my first day of school at the Mission. I chose a shiny new orange shirt. It was bright and exciting, just like I felt to be going to school for the first time. When I got to school, my shirt was taken away and I never wore it again. It is my story of losing my shiny orange shirt purchased by my grandmother that has spread across Canada and beyond. Orange Shirt Day was born out of the Truth and Reconciliation event held in Williams Lake, BC in May of 2013, and as a result of Chief Justice Sinclair challenging Canadians to keep the conversation happening after the TRC wrapped up. Our theme was remembering, recovering, and reconciling. Our First Nations, local government, schools, and the RCMP all came together to hear the truth from residential school survivors. I was part of the planning for our TRC event where I told my story of my orange shirt for the first time. We chose September because this is the time of year the children were taken away. We chose the 30th because it gives teachers and students time to settle in, to teach and learn, and time to plan an event. At the TRC event in Vancouver, BC, mid-September of 2013, before the first Orange Shirt Day, I overheard an elder say that September was crying month. I knew then that we had chosen the right day. September 30th, Orange Shirt Day, is bringing awareness of the history of Indian residential schools and the impacts on the generations. It is a day to honor residential school survivors and their families and remember those that never made it. What is forgotten is often repeated. Orange Shirt Day gives Canadians an opportunity to learn about and to teach the true history. This day acknowledges that what happened to us as children was horribly wrong and that it will never happen again. Our slogan, "Every Child Matters," began when I first told my story of my experience at residential school and how I felt that no one cared and that I didn't matter. Residential school survivors were children when they attended those schools. They all mattered, 150,000 of them. Every Child Matters in the Past, the Present, and the Future. I have 2 books published telling of my orange shirt story, and I'm working on the 3rd. The first is the Orange Shirt Story, available in English, French, and Shuswap for grade kindergarten and up. There is also curriculum and a poster available. The second is Phyllis's Orange Shirt. A lot of the illustrations are the same. The nuns and the crying were taken out. The book tells the same story, but rhymes, and is for ages 4 to 6. It is available in English and French. I am working on a 3rd book called Beyond the Orange Shirt Story for grade 5 and up, which will tell more of my and my family's truth. The Orange Shirt Society was incorporated in July of 2015 and opened an office in Williams Lake, April of 2019, at which time I became its first staff member as executive director. The 3 purposes of the Orange Society are: 1, to support Indian residential school reconciliation; 2, to create awareness of the individual, family, and community intergenerational impacts of Indian residential schools through Orange Shirt Society activities; and 3, to create awareness of the concept of Every Child Matters. Our web page is orangeshirtday.org. On our web page, we post educational resources from across Canada, and we are continually adding as we become aware of resources being developed. I noticed that much of the discussion in the House of Commons was around the need to educate Canadians about the history of residential schools in Canada. I believe that a national statutory holiday, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, can help accomplish this. I recommend that the federal government develop curriculum for teachers to use in preparing students for the statutory holiday and in learning the history behind it. The Orange Shirt Society published a book this past summer called Orange Shirt Day. This is a textbook for grade 5 and up, as well as for adults. I suggest that this book be distributed to schools and into the hands of children across the country. It is obvious by the amount of racism that is still in this country that this education and the holiday is needed. To finish, September 30th, 2021 will be the 8th year of Orange Shirt Day, and I hope the first day of a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. When I see people wearing an orange shirt or a pin, it's like a little bit of justice for us survivors in our lifetime. One day there will be no survivors in Canada. Honorable members, Gukshjacham, I thank you for your time today.
Ms. Webster, you have very little reason to be nervous. That was a fabulous presentation, and we thank you so very much. May I ask you to repeat the website that you mentioned, the .org website, for information on the book?
orangeshirtday.org.
Orangeshirtday, one word, .org.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and I'll repeat that again as we draw closer to the end. So right now we have questions and answers open to any of our witnesses. And I'd just like to remind my colleagues that please address the person you're asking the question to, as we are all remotely at present here. Also, to our guests, our witnesses, if you wish to get in on a conversation, feel free to just put your hand close to the screen like this, so the person asking the question can see you, and you can do it that way. In the meantime, we start with our 6-minute round, the first round of questions. Mr. Waugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank each and every one, Stephanie and Stephen, along with Romeo. Good to see you again, and certainly Phyllis. Phyllis, I was honored to be in the House of Commons this year. There's only a limited number of MPs in the House now because of COVID restrictions, but I was there in the House that day in September and proudly wore orange. And I have read a couple of your books, and I salute you. And we should not forget, because I am an MP from Saskatchewan, and you brought it up in 1996, that we had residential schools less than 25 years ago in this province. And this isn't something that you talk about 50, 60 years ago. It is still in the minds of many Indigenous peoples in this province. And I want to thank you for bringing it up. When I was on the Indigenous Committee, Truth and Reconciliation, it's a book that we should all have with us. So when you all referenced 80, 81, and 82, I could flip to that today, and I would agree with most of this. And I just want to say thank you for referencing the 94 calls to action. We're looking today at number 80. Some background, I'm a former school board trustee in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, and then I got elected to the urban section of the Saskatchewan school boards. So we did a lot of work from 2006 until 2015, and they're still doing it, teaching residential schools. My question, I guess, would maybe go to Stephanie and Stephen. I'm frustrated when I became an MP in Ottawa in 2015-16, when I looked around for an education minister and there is none. And yet the federal government hands over millions and millions of dollars to schools on federal reserve. So as the Saskatchewan school boards, and I'm sure it's the same in every province, Manitoba, Alberta, we do curriculums, and yet we never reach out to the federal responsibility of reserves on, and we're misconnecting, I think. I mean, we do a good job in Saskatchewan, urban and rural, but we just don't connect with the residential schools on reserves and what they are teaching. Could somebody talk about that? Because it's a federal government responsibility, and yet as provincial school board trustees, we never wanted to go there. And we need to. So maybe if you don't mind, Stephanie, talk about that, because I have been at your national center in Winnipeg.
Great, thank you. So I just want to stress that, education must take place in the classroom. This September 30th, through the generous support of Canada and its partners, including Phyllis Webstad, joined us. We held an online event titled Every Child Matters, Reconciliation Through Education. It was 90 minutes of visual education content regarding residential school systems, films of Indigenous culture and life experiences, mainly told through the eyes of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Almost 10,000 teachers and about 500,000 of their students registered to participate, and this was all right through the country, right across Canada. We watched the programming to mark Orange Shirt Day. Millions of additional Canadians viewed the content online and broadcast through the CBC and soon to be APTN. We also published education materials in regard to reconciliation with Canada's history directed at teachers in grade 5 to 12. And we thought 50,000 copies was going to be enough, but it wasn't. There was an overwhelming response for request for print material. In total, we delivered 160,000 copies to students, families, and teachers and schools across this land, including First Nations communities. Thousands of downloads also took place online. To me, this demonstrates a hunger and a need for education materials in all mediums in regard to residential schools and truth and reconciliation. September 30th is a day for families to remember and come together at gathering places and monuments to learn more about the true history of Canada. And we did work with our partners, Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Centre, who works on reserve, and they joined us all along the way, and we're really thankful that the government had helped to support this event. And it was so successful, so important. Phyllis spoke, and we taught almost 500,000 students across this country. So there is a need both in urban and First Nations communities. And it's really great that our people are able to share that story and to tell it from our perspectives to make a change in this country.
Thank you. I'm glad, Stephen, you mentioned
can I add
this.
something to it?
Yeah, you sure can.
Yeah, just very briefly, but here in the Northwest Territories, there is just public schools. We don't have any reserves, and so everything is, what's good for the settler Canadians has to be good for the Nunavut and the Métis and the Dene. So a few years ago, we decided it's going to be mandatory for high school students to graduate to take a Northern Studies course. which is a course to study the geography and the different peoples of the Northwest Territories. And there was a huge protest about it, but we held firm. And it's with amazing pride that so many people, especially those raised in Yellowknife, who never get a chance to go outside the city boundaries, never go to a Nunavut or a Gwich'in or a Sahtu or a Clichy or a Deschaux community, to say, I know who the Nunavut are because I took this course. And from there, we went into adding now the history and legacy of residential schools. So that is also going to be mandatory. You could take it in grade 10, 11, or 12, but you have to take it. So first we teach about, get to know the indigenous people, and then get to know what happened to them. And it's worked well for us. It's supported by everyone. I think everybody realized the children, the high school students, the university students that leave the north to go to Dalhousie and McGill and all the universities and schools across the country have come back and said, I was really proud to be able to say, I'm from Yellowknife, and yes, I know who the Nunavut are, and the Gwich'in and the Clichy. There's tremendous pride that comes from it, because there's actually people. There was one member of the legislature who was elected a few years ago who admitted he had never been outside the boundaries of Yellowknife, had never visited any other community than Yellowknife. And here he was given the power to vote on legislation, to allocate budgets and vote on money for 33 other communities, of which he knew absolutely nothing about. And
Thank
so
you, Mr.
this
Cochran.
was, yeah.
That's,
Okay, so there we
sorry
go.
to do that. I have to move on. Our time is up with that question. We now turn to Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do want to thank Ms. Scott, Ms. Cochran, Mr. Saginaw, and Ms. Webstead. You can hear it in my voice. I think I'm nervous too. This is quite emotional for me. And I'm joining you here in my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and Neutral people. So I'm honored to be here today. I have to say I'm newly elected, only a year, and I was doing my best to reach out to students in different schools, from high schools down to the grade schools. And when the pandemic hit, we couldn't, we kind of had to stop visiting. And it was one of the most treasured things that I did. And not that long ago, only in the fall, a school reached out to me. It was absolutely amazing. It was Forest Glen Public School. So Forest Glen Public School in Wilmot reached out to me, the students of Miss Teskey, Mr. Rumble, and Miss Kleinchuk. They reached out to me and said, as an elected official, are you aware of Orange Shirt Day, and do you know about this, and how can we make a difference? And I was honored, and I joined them for a virtual meeting with 3 grade 7s, and I thanked them for taking the initiative to reach out to their elected official, and I said, I will see what I can do. And never, in my wildest dreams would I would realize that I'd be talking to Miss Webstead herself. So if I may ask you, Miss Webstead, what message can I bring back to those students who took the time to reach out? And hopefully there are many others across the country, especially, if education can help us bring awareness, and we can start with this younger generation, and they are naturally inclined to want to reach out and help. What message can you give to those young students who took the time and had the know-how to reach out to their elected officials about how they can make a difference?
It depends on the age of the children and the grade. My presentations differ from depending on what age group, but one thing that I always thank them for is for caring about what happened to us, and for learning the history, and for having empathy for our experiences. And children are amazing. They understand more than I would ever have given them credit for. So the at that age, the younger age, they're just upset that somebody took my shirt, and how dare they take my shirt. And so they have the empathy. And as they grow older and into the high schools, that somebody said before, this wasn't 100 years ago, and all survivors aren't dead and gone. We're still here. When I would be introduced in school assemblies, when I did my Across Canada tour last year, paid by Canadian Heritage, that I would be introduced as the real Phyllis Webstad. So that this, to let them know that this was recent history, and that survivors are still here, and encourage them to know the land they're on. If there's survivors in the area, to ask them if they're okay to speak, and even their families. There are intergenerational impacts. So thank you for that question.
I will bring those suggestions back to them. And in this case with Forest Glen, they were grade 7. And I have to say, 3 classrooms in its virtual setting, and it was one of the most mature conversations I've ever had. I think a holiday like this will really cement the need to make these changes and to move forward. I very much appreciate it. Time for one more quick question. Maybe Miss Scott. We mentioned the balance between celebrating culture on National Day of Truth and Reconciliation with also that National Day of Mourning. And at the same time, you want to look back and recognize, but you also want to look forward. So what can we learn from you about that balance? How can we strike that very balance?
Well, I think it's been almost 5 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission closed its doors, and there's still a lot of work to be done towards reconciliation and many calls to action that still need to be completed. When I talk about the balance, I think my mother-in-law was also taken to her first residential school at the age of 7. She wishes for a day to remember the students and their families' resiliency. She took a bad situation, being in residential school, and she turned it around. Recently, she completed her PhD, and she's in her 70s. So, I think much respect to her. She took back her power, and she wants all Canadians to know the assimilation policies did not kill her. And she speaks about that often. As an intergenerational survivor, I see this day as a time for my children and grandchildren to lay tobacco, pray, and remember all survivors and the parents that were left behind. And we must never forget the thousands of children that died or did not return from the schools. During the TRC, many, many survivors and the parents of former students spoke with children who went to school and never came home. It is unbelievable that some parents who passed on to the spirit world or are alive today do not know where their children are buried, sometimes even thousands of miles away. The NCTR will continue to find the truth of what happened to the children of residential schools through an exhaustive review of the residential school records that we hold in the archive. And I think it's important that we have places to gather and to come together and to respect, honor, and remember those who have gone before us, and for the future generations that they can learn.
I thank you very much. I'd love to ask more questions. I want to give more people time. And I just wanted to add one quick thing, Mr. Saganash. I wish I had time to talk to you, but I wasn't in the House of Commons. But when I heard you speak, it was one of the most emotional moments of my life. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Monsieur Champoux, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Champoux, 6 minutes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank the witnesses who are here with us today. As Mr. Lewis said earlier, this is a powerful and emotional and important and symbolic moment. And in fact, that segues into my first question I'd like to ask of Mr. Saganash. Do you get the sense that and I use this word with caution, that we're making small symbolic steps only when it comes to Indigenous peoples? How is it that successive governments have had so much trouble taking significant, meaningful action without things getting so complicated? Well, that's an excellent question you've asked. And it's something I've been mulling over for the last 40 years, I might add. And I think that one of the biggest difficulties that is faced is that we're all going after the same things, that is, land and resources. I want to protect my rights, I want to protect my resources, whilst others are trying to take them away from us. And that's the difficulty we face in this country. It's not for nothing that the difficulties that we're facing and have faced in Canada, whether it be in Kanesatake or in the Wet'suwet'en and the Mi'kmaq communities, the Anishinaabe, in the Parc La Vérendrye in Quebec, the Innu, and I might point out that they are, quote unquote, in negotiations and have been for the past 40 years, since 1982. The Atikamekw and the Innu have been negotiating with the two respective provincial and the federal governments without anything being settled to date. And despite all of that, development has continued on their lands. So one challenge that, well, these are in fact major challenges that we do face. Now, the other challenge is, and given all the critical situation that we see across Canada, but as Martin Luther King once said,
cup of endurance runs over. C'est-à-dire que notre patience,
that is, that our patience has its limits too. And it is my fear that that the new generation of youth are more aware of their fundamental rights in this country. They're better educated, more educated, and they're not as patient as us, especially me. Over the past 40 years, we have a lot of patience. Question. Thank you. Well, this theme of education and teaching, of history around the reservation and around the residential schools is very important. Now, Mr. Takwi, you said the 30th of September shouldn't be a statutory holiday, but one of tribute. Now, how would these days of tribute be properly and helpfully used, not only to honour the survivors of residential schools, but also to educate not only young Indigenous persons, but all Canadians? What could be done on that particular day, in addition to just having a day per se?
Okay, looking for the...
You're on mute now, Mr. Kakwe. Can you tap it one more time?
How's that? Any better?
Perfect. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. These are a bit legal, I guess. I think if a legal definition of holiday constitutes a day set aside in Canada to do something special, then we have to hang on to the word holiday. I just don't like the connotation of it, in layman terms, that it should be more a Memorial Day, a day to commemorate, a day to remember, not a holiday where everybody stays home and put their feet up and watch TV. That was the point I was making. But September 30th should be set aside if the legal term, parliamentary term, is to make it another holiday along the list of the others, then that we should go with that. I'm just saying, I don't want people to think, hey, we got another holiday. That's great.
Merci.
Thank you. Ms. Webster, it would be remiss of me to not thank you for everything you've done throughout this entire process. Now, you said something earlier that struck me as being important. If our history isn't taught and it may reoccur, and you're so right. You have the tools at your disposal for education around the residential schools, and I hope that you will use them for broad dissemination purposes. And as I said earlier, to ensure that awareness building is not just for young Indigenous persons, but for young Canadians and young Quebecers that need to know the history, not only of residential schools, but Indigenous history in general. So I don't really have any questions per se. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. And if you ever have trouble reaching out to the ministries in the provinces, well, reach out to us first and we'll help you facilitate that. Thank you.
Chamboul. Now, Ms. McPherson for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also would like to echo my colleagues to thank all of our guests who are joining us today. This has been wonderful, and it is such an honor to hear Miss Webstad speak about feeling nervous and uncomfortable presenting is unbelievable. It's such an honor to have you here, Mrs. Webstad. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I do have some questions for you, but I think I'm going to first ask a question actually of Mr. Saganash, somebody who is a survivor of residential schools as well. And I just did want to talk to you a little bit, follow up a little bit on what my colleague MP Chamboul talked about. Well, I believe that this is a vital step, that this day of reconciliation is a vital step. It does seem like a relatively simple piece of legislation. And I'm wondering from your perspectives, what you would like to see us move on in terms of those calls for action that would require a little bit more effort, a little bit more time. I know you spoke of UNDRIP, you spoke of the 16 calls for action implicated by UNDRIP. Perhaps you could talk on those things that you'd really like to see the government move on next in those 80 calls. Or sorry, not those 80 calls, those 94 calls.
Well, thank you for that question, Heather. I think it's an important one. Above and beyond what we are intending to achieve with this piece of legislation, C5, I think the other important piece that's still missing, in my view, is the legislation on the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples that would implement calls for action 43 and 44 in particular. It's important that Bill C-262, which died in the Senate, as I mentioned, was perhaps the most important piece of legislation that Parliament of Canada had considered to that point. So I think we need to renew that effort to adopt legislation to implement those calls for action 43 and 44 in particular. The United Nations has considered the rights of Indigenous peoples as human rights for the past 3 decades. And I recall when we voted on Bill C-262 in the previous Parliament, there are still members of that Parliament, previous Parliament, that voted against Bill C-262, therefore voting against the very fundamental human rights of the first peoples of this country. I still remember that. And I cannot grasp how in 2020, in one of the richest countries in the world, and still have members of Parliament voting against human rights. It's just beyond me. So I think that bill needs to be adopted in this present Parliament. I know it's difficult times right now, trying times at this moment, but if we want to move forward on the path of reconciliation, I think fully adopting and implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples will be a huge step. BC has done it, and the sky hasn't fallen. I think we can. I think that's the path we need to choose moving forward.
Thank you so much, and it is a deep stain on this country that we have not been able to pass that legislation yet, certainly. And thank you, and of course, MP Gilles for all of the work that you've done on this. The next question I wanted to ask about, I'm a mother, and of course, on September 30th, my children and I wear our orange shirts. I'm also a teacher by training, so I'm very interested in some of the comments that I've heard so far in terms of how we ensure that students learn that this is part of our curriculums, part of our classes. And one of the questions that I have, and maybe I'll start by asking Ms. Webstad, knowing that this is so important and knowing that there are resources that have been developed, I actually wanted to show, I have a book that I read to classes that I've been reading that is also written partly, it's written in Cree, called Stolen Words. But knowing that we have these resources in place that we can implement around the country, that we can use this day as one of those moments for that, how do you see us working through the fact that the provincial curriculum, that education is a curriculumly mandated thing within provinces, and that not all provinces are going to be as open to this discussion as others? Ms. Webstad, could you comment on that? And then I may pass that over actually as well to Ms. Scott.
Okay. From 2013, when Orange Shirt Day first started, I've noticed it's getting better, and it will continue to get better. By better, I mean teachers more aware. In 2013, especially 2014, and I would get emails from teachers across Canada wanting to know, how do I teach this? What do I do? Where do I go? What do I need? What do I need to know? What if I do it wrong? And I didn't have answers for them. I have in my files a kit that I would send to teachers. I'm not a teacher. My education is accounting and bookkeeping. I'm used to being in my corner doing my books. So I don't, so I just gathered stuff. And one of the big ones was Manitoba. I would share the link to the Manitoba resources for teachers to look at. And across Canada, it's getting better and better that more provinces are having curriculum and developing curriculum. And whenever we hear about it, we post it on our webpage. So now my response to emails is, please check our resources on our page. And I encourage any teachers that have curriculum that are willing to share it, to post it on our page. Not sure if that answered your question, but that's been what I've been doing personally. And,
well, and
I
will say that I will share that. Oh, sorry, I'm out of time, aren't I?
No, you want to finish that thought, Ms. McPherson?
I was just going to say that I would just let you know that in Alberta, I know you probably are aware that there's been taken out of our curriculum. There is a proposal to take residential school education out of our curriculum. And so I will make sure that I share your resources as widely as I can to educators in this province.
Thank you, folks. We have to move on to the next question. Mr. Shields, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. And I'll be sharing my time with MP Aitchison. Premier of Northwest Territories, I've had the privilege of going to your assembly building and how it was designed, not like we do in ours with two swords separate, but in a circle. And I have an idea you probably were involved in the setting up of that. But you referenced number 80 in the building of relationships. So when I look at this in your comments about, quote, a holiday, you know, if I thought all federal employees were out building relationships on that day, that might be a great idea. But I think we've got a problem here. And I think, how would you, in the sense of saying, okay, federal employees, how do we build relationships? Because you referred to that, and I know from your background, that's probably what you really strongly work at.
Can you hear me again? Who's controlling the audio? You can hear me okay?
Yep. You are coming in just fine, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In the Northwest Territories, there is 40,000 people, and we're split about a third of a million square miles. Originally, we were 1.5 million square miles, and then we divided and created Nunavut. But the country is diverse, and we operate on a consensus system. So most leaders elected know what it takes to reach an agreement. And so that gives us a good footing to accommodate each other's interests and show the kind of respect, I guess, and dialogue that it takes to make this a home for everybody. In the north here, one of the things we do, for instance, is we orient teachers. Every fall, new teachers come into the north. Before they disperse into all the communities, they spend at least 2 days getting oriented, and I'm one of the speakers that get invited to speak to them about who I am, where my people are, some of the history I have, and my experiences in residential school. And so they go into the communities already knowing a little bit about the history that we have had. And it changes everything about what we do. Then they are truly interested in learning more. And the curriculum right now, it is being changed to add much more videos and books and testimonials from residential school survivors.
Thank you. Yep. I would agree that maybe that's what our federal employees should be doing on September 30th. There should be more of a structured approach for our federal employees rather than what you suggested, sitting at home watching TV. I think unless we do that, unless there's a structured move, I don't think we're going to do number 80 that you're talking about in building relationships.
Well, I watch every year, and I take part in Remembrance Day because my wife's family and some of my distant relatives did serve in a war. So I understand world history, the terrible wars that the world has been in, and I believe that we have to provide ceremony and Remembrance Day activities to remember that, so we don't forget. And I think we could do the same. We need the federal government to finish working on the creation of a national monument in Ottawa. So every September 30th, the Prime Minister, the members of Parliament, the senators can go to this monument that we're going to create. That is already, the process had started and then got sidelined about a year ago. But we can televise this across Canada, and it will force the parents of every child that sees that on TV and says, Mom, Dad, what is that all about? How come you never talked to me about this? I didn't know there were Indigenous people. Who are they? What happened to them? That's going to create the dialogue, but we need some help. And the monuments, there's supposed to be one national monument created in Ottawa and then one in each of the provinces and territories. So we need to do that. And we also need the minister to finish creating the National Council for Truth and Reconciliation. This is the, aside from the UN Declaration being adopted by Canada, the creation of a National Council for Reconciliation is also paramount, because that is the council that is going to take to task the country on an annual basis. Just as the Auditor General does for counting of our money, we also need this National Council for Reconciliation to take the governments and the churches and the provinces and the cities and the towns across this country and the schools on the progress or lack of it on a yearly basis towards reconciliation.
I apologize. I hate to interrupt, but I only have 20 seconds for Mr. Aitchison. If you have a quick question, sir, please go ahead, but I have to make this very quick.
Well, I have a lot of questions, but maybe what I'll do, because there's not enough time, we have contact information for each of these remarkable witnesses. I need to learn more, and I want to thank you so much for what you said to us today. Ms. Webstad, I just recently purchased a whole bunch of books for all the elementary schools in my riding on International Day of the Girl. I think I'm going to buy one of your books for every single school in my riding as well. And I'd like to talk to you about doing an event virtually, maybe, where we give those books out. I'm just so I'm really quite moved by what I've heard today. So I'll need to talk to you more away from this constrained format.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. At the risk of sounding like a biased chair, well said. Now we're going to Mr. Housefather for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much to this distinguished and wonderful panel of witnesses. And Mr. Saganash, it's great to see you again. And it's great to hear from the others. The stories you told were incredibly moving. And like all of my colleagues, I think from all parties, I'm full of contrition for the residential school experience that so many Indigenous people in this country experienced. And you know, there's no way of absolutely making amends, but one way of doing it is making sure that all Canadians, especially when survivors are gone, know the history of this day and why we have caused it to happen. And that doesn't mean that there's not so much more work to be done in terms of police brutality against Indigenous people, over incarceration rate of Indigenous people, implementing the rest of the recommendations of this report, you know, implementing treaties that we should be implementing. So I'm going to stick to the bill itself, but just understand that in the framework of my questions on the bill, I'm not saying that there's not so many other things we still need to do. I would like to actually ask each of the witnesses to let me know, are there any amendments to this bill that you think should be made by this committee? And I'd like to perhaps start with Ms. Scott. Are there any amendments to the bill that your association sees are necessary?
Hi there. Upon review, we didn't have any further comments or changes to the bill moving forward. We hope that, you know, it passes and receives royal assent.
Thank you. And Ms. Webstad?
No, we haven't come up with any changes. It's good the way it is.
Thank you. Mr. Saganash?
Well, I think the bill is pretty straightforward in my view. I'm glad, however, and I need to mention this, I'm glad that the word truth also is included in the bill. So it's truth and reconciliation. I think both of them go together, and I'm happy to see that both words are included.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So given that there's no changes recommended to the bill, I'm going to move to the other question then. And I probably only have a chance to ask it to one of you. I think it's kind of been answered by Ms. Scott already, but Ms. Webstad, in terms of educating people on the reasons why we're adopting this day, I also read your books with great attention. I really appreciate the fact that you wrote them for children. Is there anything other than the monument and making sure we get the monument completed and education that you see that we should be doing in terms of commemorating this day, on this day? So public education campaigns, particularly for schools, having a monument that members of parliament and other people in Ottawa can go to. Is there anything else you would offer that the government should be looking to in terms of commemorating this day?
I'm glad you asked that because I was putting my hand up to talk. But one of the things is when I speak, I always say about this stat holiday is that the concern is having a day off to put your feet up, like Stephen said. But I encourage public, the federal government workers and Indigenous that get the day off because they're federal, to find an Orange Shirt Day event. They're all across Canada, to volunteer, to set up chairs, take down chairs, help an elder, you know, hand out water, show up with your smudge bowl, to like whatever you can, but get out of the house and get to an event. And this isn't a federal suggestion, but I just want to throw this in there. Myself and another are working with the Niagara Falls Illumination Committee. This year, Niagara Falls was lit up for 15 minutes, 1 minute per 10,000 for the 150,000 children. And I want to get out to Canadians that this we're working on getting this happen on the USA and Canada side at a specific time every year. I'm suggesting 8 a.m. Ontario time, so 5 BC time, that so families can stand out wherever they are and say out loud their families' names. So those 150,000 names are being told, are being said. So I plan to be in Niagara Falls on September of 2022, and I invite you all to be there. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And I'm just going to close
Sure.
by saying, I'll just close by saying that hopefully all members of Parliament will organize an event in their riding to complete that day. I think it's important for all of us. And of course, I hope the provinces will also get involved and recognize the holiday. And I see Mr. Kakwe wanted to say something, so I'll close. And Mr. Chair, I'll yield back my time. And if Mr. Kakwe can finish.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Part of the work that needs to be done as well is it's not just with non-Indigenous Canadians, it's with Indigenous people as well, with Indigenous families. As an example, it's only about 4 years now that I found out some of my mother's relatives were in residential school from 1860 on. For over 130 years, my family has been in residential schools. It was only when my mother turned 80 that she finally told us the reason she never talks about her childhood is because she didn't have any. She spent almost 10 years in a residential school, and she only told us when she was 80 years old. So we still don't know very much about what she went through. But there's so much learning to be done, healing within our own communities. That is the work that, and we need as Indigenous people to mark and commemorate, to heal together as well. It's not just non-Indigenous people that need to engage, although we need that. The greatest healing that needs to be done is within the families of residential school survivors.
Thank you, Mr. Kakwe, for ending on essentially a very good note to end on as we end this meeting. Unfortunately, we don't have more time. Fortunately, it was a good meeting, and I want to thank you all for doing it. I want to thank Romeo Saganash, our dear friend who joins us. Thank you so much, sir, from the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, Acting Director Stephanie Scott, as well as Governing Circle member Stephen Kakwe, and of course from the Orange Shirt Society, Executive Director and proud founder of Orange Shirt Day. We especially want to thank Phyllis Webstad for her insight. And one more time, Ms. Webstad, what's that website again?
orangeshirtday.org.
orangeshirtday.org. Thank you all. We have to end it there. And again, I appreciate everything that you've brought to us today. This has been a very good session. I now adjourn. Thank you.